business, or are you running a business? Valuation is the ultimate KPI.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Valuations Podcast, brought to you by Trulytics, the premier transition management and business optimization platform for the wealth management and insurance industries. My name is Mike Langford, and I'm the host of the Valuations Podcast. And this week, the topic is attracting millennials to your wealth management or your insurance firm. This is a really big topic for the broader financial services industry, is how to get high quality, highly talented millennial workers to come work for you. And it's particularly important given the state of where we are in the industry, right? So as you've seen from Trulytics, there's a prediction of this great transition wave coming. And it's a demographic challenge, right? We've got a very large population of baby boomer advisors, RIA business owners, agents, insurance firm owners, take your pick, right? That are going to be aging out of the industry or that are going to retire. It's just a reality, right? Father time, as they say in sports, father time is undefeated. No one gets to last forever. And the smart business owner, the smart advisor, is starting to think when they're in their 50s and definitely when they're in their 60s about who's going to take over, who's going to acquire this firm. Should I be training my replacement? Should I be bringing somebody into the business who can relate better to younger clients, my future clients for the business, and can be there when I decide to step away so that the business lives on? And we've talked a lot about that on this show over the years, right? We have talked a lot about how you need to think about your practice as a business, in that you as a business leader have a responsibility to the continuity of the business. And as a result, you're going to have to be constantly looking at the talent in play. And we've actually been talking about that a lot lately, haven't we? Looking at the talent in your business and how do you make sure that it stays current, that it stays up to date on the latest technology trends, and obviously that it stays fresh and it's viable for a long-term future of the business. And it's really difficult to have a long-term future of the business if you don't have people who, from a demographic perspective, are going to be there, have the potential to be there for a long term, right? Makes sense. So this topic really popped into my head last week when I was talking to Alana Levitan. And Alana is a member of the Trulytics marketing team. And she and I had a really interesting conversation last week, and it covered a lot of marketing topics for Trulytics, as you might suspect. But one of the things that came about was, she's young. She's just about 25 years old. And she was mentioning that many of her peers, her friends, are not even looking at the financial services industry, that they're not interested or they don't feel comfortable with it. And so that spawned a whole bunch of different ideas we went on. And she's like, maybe we should have something where we talk about recruiting millennial talent into your financial firm. And I'm like, that's a fantastic idea. And here it is. So a couple of things I want to dive into before I tee up the ideas that I want to share with you that I think are most on point for attracting millennial talent to your wealth management firm, to your insurance business, to take over your individual book of business if you're looking to transition out as an individual advisor or agent. Okay, so the first thing is, let's start out with defining millennials. And I think this is really important because often when I hear someone who is a baby boomer or Gen Xer describe millennials, they often describe them in a way as if they're high school students or barely out of college folks, and that they think that millennials as a generation have frozen in that age group and that kind of that time in their life, that either pre-adult or young adult. And that's actually not true, right? Millennials were born between 1981 in 1996, according to like all the definitions, right? They were becoming adults in the early 21st century. So that's kind of how we define millennials. Here's the deal. They're all adults now. That's kind of freaky to think about, right? But if you were born in 1996, you're in your 20s. I think now that's weird for a lot of us who became adults before 1996 to think that, oh my gosh, right? That there is a very large population of Americans running around who are adults now, who are voting now, who are in the workforce now, and they were born after you got out of college. So it's kind of wild for you to think about, I'm sure. But here's the deal: they're not just young bucks, kids who don't know anything. In fact, many of them, the earlier bracket of the millennials, are in their late 30s now. They're closer to middle age than they are young kids. They're starting to get close to, I know they don't want to hear this, right? But the oldest millennials are 37 now, and they are 37, 38. They are knocking on middle age, just so you know, millennials, which also means they're entering their prime earning years. Which also means that they're past the very early nubs of their beginning of their career. They're starting to start thinking like professionals, right? Many of them are already solidified professionals. They're focused on having a vibrant career. So it's really important to have that in your mindset when you're thinking about attracting millennials. Okay. Think about them accurately. Okay. The other thing I want to make sure we don't go down the rabbit hole of is I do not want us to think of millennials in terms of some of the stereotypes you often hear. Well, they're all entitled, or they need to be handheld and coddled. They don't take criticism well. A little word of wisdom here. That's what they said about Gen Xers. That's what they said about baby boomers. There's always the older generation, the generation before, is always looking at the new generation going, they don't get it. They don't want to work hard. They're lazy. They're uninformed. They're blah, 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 whatever that is. Look, you can look at any generation of humans, any large group of humans, and find some stereotypes and find some things you don't like about that segment of humans. But the reality is, when you look at people, most people are hard workers. Most people have some intrinsic motivation about themselves. They want to achieve some things. They want to do a good job. They want to do some good things in the world. They want to raise a family. All the things that are important to you at a high level are probably important to the age brackets below you. Just kind of keep that in mind, right? Now, what I do want to pay attention to, and what I think is the most important thing to focus on, is that millennials have grown up in a different world than my generation, Gen X, and the generation before me, the baby boomers. It's a dramatically different world. My generation, Gen X, there's not as much difference between my generation and baby boomers and the what do they call it? The post-war generations, or the war generation, right? My grandparents' generation. Because look, when I was growing up, a lot of the same social things were true, right? We watched the same TV shows and movies, the classic movies, the reruns were the same reruns that were on when my parents were kids, the same reruns that were same shows that were on, Little Rascals and the Three Stooges and so forth. That stuff was on when my parents were kids, and when my grandparents were younger, they saw those things. So there's some commonalities there. We still use phones with cords on them, right? We still had 13 TV channels until cable came about in the 80s. But we had our lives were much similar to the previous two generations than they are to the millennial generation in terms of a lot of things. Our expectations for the workforce were very similar to the previous generations that came before us, whereas millennial generation, they have some dramatically different experiences, and those expectations, and those expectations are based on experience that they have had and that they have witnessed their parents and their grandparents have. And it really is important for you to understand those experiences and how they've shaped the mindset of millennials in order for you to attract the best and brightest from that generation to your business. So I'm going to talk about 3 key areas that I want you to focus on and think about when you're going about recruiting people from the millennial generation, right? So people in their early 20s, right now in 2019, people are like, 22-ish, right? Fresh out of college, 23 maybe, all the way up to your late 30s. This is the segment of humans we're talking about here. Okay, first thing, they are digital natives, right? The older ones, the 37-year-olds, they still grew up most likely with a computer in the house. They probably had computers in school always. They probably don't remember a time when they were in school or any other professional environment, if you want to call it that, when there weren't computers present. Whereas my generation, I've said this many, many times, I am the last, a member of the last group of adults to become adults before the internet. I remember school without computers in the school. I remember learning how to type on typewriters with correction tape, not computers, right? I remember going to offices where there was no computer, where the secretary, as she was almost always called then, was banging away on an electric typewriter, and it was binging every time she got to the end of the line. Where the phones rang like old school phones. I remember rotary dial phones with cords on them. This generation, the older ones have some foggy memories of that stuff, but by and large, computers have always been a part of their life. New technology and rapidly changing technology, always been a part of their lives. On the younger side, if you are recruiting somebody who is 22 to 24 or whatever, they have very foggy memories of like life before the internet, because life before the internet for them was like when they were in grade school and the younger side of grade school. But, the internet as we know it really got its start in 1995. And by the end of the 90s, these folks were, right, all on computers, right? We all had the internet at home by the late 90s, early 2000s. And the younger age of this demographic was born in the 90s. Okay, so keep that in mind. What does that mean for recruiting? Okay, look, this is a little bit of a wake-up call to our industry here, but many of us in this industry are not the most tech forward. Now, I am. But I talk to lots of wealth management firms, and it is stunning how their website looks like it was, could have been frozen in time from the early 2000s. They're not using social media. They are not using video. They are not using podcasts. They are not using text messaging to interact with clients. Now, oftentimes, the immediate pushback is, well, compliance, regulations, we can't do that. Well, frankly, it's crap. The guidance is clear. You can use social media. You can use text messaging. You can use modern technologies to communicate with your prospects and clients. There's nothing that says you can't. You just have to have the proper ability to archive and supervise that communication. Lucky for you, those solutions exist. There are solutions to handle text messaging, to handle social media, archival, and supervision. Your compliance team just has to deal with the fact that they're going to have to review some of that stuff because it's part of doing modern business in 2019 and beyond. Because your customer, your client, is going to expect you to be on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. They're going to expect you to be sharing videos. They spend a lot of time staring at their phones. They spend a lot of time on the internet. That's where they are, right? They're not going to seminars in the way that they used to. They're not doing the lunch and learn type of concept the way that they used to. They want to interact with you in the way that's comfortable with them. And attracting a younger millennial workforce, they're going to want to interact with their clients in the way that the clients want to be interacted with, right? They're going to prospect them where they know the client's eyeballs and ears are, right? So embrace the notion that you have digital natives. Embrace the notion that many of these people are what I call social media natives, right? They've only had social media in their lives like their entire lives. They don't remember a world without the smartphone. They don't really remember a world without social being available to them. Why would we deny that to them, right? This would be like when you get your career, if you get your career started in the late 80s or early 90s, if you walked into a place and all they had was rotary telephones. They didn't even have touch-tone phones or hold anymore yet, or they didn't have fax machines yet, right? And then if you started your career in the early 90s, you kind of knew that you were going to expect to have a computer on your desk. Imagine if you walked into an office that hadn't embraced the computer revolution yet. You'd be like, oh, wow, maybe I've made a huge mistake, right? So embrace technology. Show these recruits that you get it. And that, by the way, if you don't get it, that you want to get it and you're willing to have them help you get it. You want to create the opportunity for them to lead the digital transformation of your business and take you into the future, because that's what you're looking for when you're bringing in younger folks into the business. Okay, so digital natives, get it. Okay, number two, this generation has been and is scarred by and traumatized by the financial markets and Wall Street. Let that sink in for a second. What these people have witnessed in their younger years and their early adult years are two major financial crises, right? We had the dot-com crash, and it took a decade for their markets to recover, get back up to where they were at the beginning of the dot-com crash. And then they witness the housing bubble and the resultant financial crisis that happened. And they watched all the bad actors on Wall Street. They have watched, the demonization of the financial services sector. And many of them in their minds may feel that there's some, that if they're coming to work for this industry, that it's like kind of joining the evil empire, right? That there's a really, really nasty hangover effects from that of imagine watching mom and dad get laid off. Imagine watching mom and dad and people lose their homes during the financial crisis. But all the while, executives got fat bonuses and got to keep their jobs. And some of the bad actors who were really, really shady and preyed upon people, nobody went to jail. Now, take any other comments out of that. That's real stuff. There is a real, like I said, traumatization that happened for many people in that generation as it relates to the industry. So they're going to be somewhat standoffish. They look at the industry and they see it as slow and stodgy. You got to try to convince them that it's not slow and stodgy. We talked about that with the digital native stuff. But you also have to change the narrative when it comes to the industry, because you and I both know that the industry is not evil, right? That the financial services industry actually is a really good thing for people, that we are helping people on the wealth management side plan for the future, have vibrant lives currently now and in the future, that they make sure they can plan for their retirement, for their college education, for leaving a legacy, to make sure that they have solid financial planning in place during their current life, so that they have the ability to do things like go on family vacations and everything else, and live in the home they want to live in, and have security now and in the future. On the insurance side, look, you're protecting people from catastrophic losses, making sure that in the event that somebody passes away or they have a loss of property, that it doesn't wipe them out, right? These are really good things. So reframing the industry and what you do to make it more service-oriented and making that part of your pitch will help you attract people who ordinarily might not look at the industry and think it's overly attractive. Okay. I assure you that matters, right? Because in the old days, we hired anybody who could fog a mirror, dropped a book of names in front of them and said, start dialing. You're in business and your job is to pass the Series 7 exam and start bringing people in for interviews to talk to senior advisors. And if you are successfully pass your Series 7, these people are going to come in and they're going to work, that came in with your senior advisor, are going to be your clients. And I'll turn over some of my other lower accounts to you, and you can build that business up. It was all about money. It was all about activity. That still works on some, but I'm telling you, as a broader trend, this generation called the millennials are really interested in making an impact and doing good in the world. Okay. So make that part of your pitch. Okay. And recognize that these people are a little traumatized and scarred by what they've seen in their lifetime. Next. Okay. And final, by the way, for this, my third tip for you to attract millennials. You see this in sports, by the way, but this is a generation that is going to be loyal as long as being loyal is their best option. What does that mean, right? It doesn't sound like loyalty, right? When I say, hey, listen, I'm going to be loyal to you, say that to your wife, right? Like, I'm going to be loyal to you as long as it's the best option, like, as long as something better doesn't come along. Okay, so it sounds kind of crass, right? But the reality is this generation saw what happened to previous generations. They saw, as I did, in my late teens that corporate America broke the contract that it had with the American worker. They saw it. Starting in the late 80s and well into the 90s and beyond, corporate America said that we'll lay people off. We will move overseas, right? We will take our manufacturing, our call centers, we will bring it to the cheapest labor there is. We are not loyal to you employees. And labor took notice, right? For my generation, those before who were kind of brought up on this loyalty mindset, stay with the company. We saw grandpa work for the same company for 40 years and retire and have a nice retirement, right? But when I saw my dad get laid off when I was a senior in high school and he'd been with the company for 17 years, you bet that changed my perception. Now, this is a generation who has watched layoffs their entire life. They see zero loyalty on behalf of corporate America, whether that corporate America is big business or small companies. They see people lose their jobs all the time. These are people who, many of them who graduated school and went into dreadful job markets where there were no jobs to be found, but they had mountains of student loan debt, right? They're forced into the gig economy to work, several different little gigs to make enough money to pay their rent and pay their student loans. These are some people, as I was talking to Alana earlier today, many of whom feel that they'll never be able to pay those student loans off. They'll never own a house. They're never going to make enough money to have the lives that they expected to have. Now, we know that that's actually not true, right? That there's plenty of great opportunity, especially in this industry, right? This is a fantastic industry to make a long career in if you get in with the right firm and you build your business accordingly. But you have to acknowledge that these folks they're going to be gun shy. And if they don't feel like you are putting the right foot forward, that you are setting them up for success, they have zero problem leaving you. And it's justified, right? Company would have zero problem walking and say, hey, today's going to be your last day. Pack up your stuff and go. And we're going to give you like a 6-week severance. Company would have no problem doing that. This is a generation of folks who, not all, but some of them, they won't even give you 2 weeks notice when they've decided to make a change. They just won't show up. It's called ghosting, right? They'll just won't show up, won't call you. You won't be able to reach them. They've just decided they've had enough. If they've got a manager who's a bit of a jerk, or if they've been thinking they should get paid more and you won't give them the raise that they deserve or give them the opportunity they deserve, and suddenly a new opportunity arises, okay? So what can you do, right? Because again, it sounds rude and unprofessional, but it's not. So what you need to do is develop, number one, a really good reputation. The people who work for you, treat them well, right? Do lots of things for them, train them, give them opportunity to improve, give them opportunity from a lifestyle perspective, like things like working from home, kind of going back to that digital native thing, right? They're aware that their laptop has Wi-Fi on it, that they can literally work from anywhere. Well, give them that opportunity if they want to work from home or whatever, or if they want to be able to travel, take 6 months and kind of go abroad or whatever. Find ways to facilitate lifestyle in your business. Make sure that you're training really well. Make sure that you're showing them the path. Like, so for instance, one of the things that astonishes me on the wealth management side, most financial advisors, new financial advisors, quit the business before year 5. So 80% of financial advisors wash out before year 5. They're gone, right? So that means 20% make it to year 5 and beyond. That's staggering, right? It stuns you that people quit. But here's a really interesting thing I've discovered. Every time I've ever gone to a top producer conference and I speak and I'm interacting or doing seminars or whatever, I ask that question of the top producers. How many years did it take for you to feel successful in the industry? And it is almost always 5 years. They talk about the first several years of the business. It was brutal. They made almost no money. They go home and cry and get upset and wonder what the hell they're doing. But as you and I know, this is a cumulative business. You bring on maybe a couple of clients in your first year. You're making next to nothing. Right? But then those clients stay with you. And then year 2, you bring on a couple of more. And then year 3, you bring on a couple of more. So anything you could do to kind of help them show that miracle of compound interest, we show that all the time to investors, to show them that compounding over time really is amazing. Well, compounding of clients really is amazing over time. It takes time to get everything down for things to click, but then also for you to get good at bringing clients on, for that referral engine to kick in, right? Clients, you talk to advisors, and I'm sure the same thing for insurance agents. Most of them say a lot of their business comes from referrals. Well, how long do you have to be in business for you to generate a vibrant flow of referrals? Well, you got to build up a good client roster. You got to be in business for a while before people can start sending you business. Many of the prospects that these young advisors meet in the early days, they're not ready to do business with them yet because all the money's tied up in their 401k. Or if they're their peers and they're also in their young or mid 20s, well, they haven't started producing excess investable assets yet. They haven't changed jobs enough yet to have the 401k rollovers available, but many of them will. So you really have to do a great job of painting a picture to a young millennial advisor or agent that, hey, you need to give this 5 years. And let me show you why. And it's not about paying your dues. It's like, this is how long it takes. So I'm going to help you. I'm going to be with you every step of the way. We're going to try to accelerate it faster, but you need to know that you probably should be thinking investing 5 years or more to get to the point where you're going to be as successful as you want in this business. And when you get successful in this business, there is no other business that offers the lifestyle that this business offers, right? Because it is kind of like mailbox money, that you're going to be able to do things like go on vacations, leave work at 5 and not have to work, burning the midnight oil like some of your friends do. Now, some of your friends might get higher salaries faster because some of the ramp, if you will, the hockey stick is really quick for those people. But in this industry, it's a longer hockey stick. It actually looks like a real hockey stick with the long shaft and the curve at the end, right? But as we work towards it, you're going to find that this will be a much better business for you in the long run. Okay? So that's how you attract high quality talent and make sure that you develop them into successful advisors and agents who might one day be the ones who take over your business, that are part of your succession plan. That's the best way to do it. Treat them like that from day one. Invest in them, and they'll believe in you. Okay. Hopefully this was helpful. I know we covered a lot of ground in here. But we actually have a new guest coming on later this week. I'm really excited about Andy Ambrose on our next episode. He is one of the co-founders of Live Oak Technologies, based here in Austin, Texas. And this isn't quite the spoiler. Andy's business, Live Oak, makes it possible for financial firms to do live video chat, and it's secure, and it's designed to help accelerate the process for things like rollovers, to get the money moving, to help people sign contracts, and to make sure that everything is again, like we talk about, archived, supervisable, it's secure, and digital signature process is built all in so that it makes everything more fluid. And it's really, really taken off. I've known Andy and his co-founder, Pete Rung, for a while. And I'm really, really excited to have Andy on the show for this next episode. So make sure you kind of bookmark it and get ready for that. As always, like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and TuneIn. Make sure you swing by truelytics.com. Enter your contact information there so we're on our newsletter. And also, tell a friend. Make sure you tell friends, hey, listen, guess what? This Truelytics Valuations podcast, I'm getting a lot out of it. That dude, Mike, he's fun to hang out with for half an hour or so in your earbuds while you're doing some stuff. So check it out. Also, as always, please do send in your suggestions, comments, questions you want to see covered. Always excited to do that. If you have questions in the next day or so for Andy, let me know. Or if you have questions about millennials, also let us know. It's kind of cool. We have a resident millennial here, Alana. I'm sure she has lots of feedback for you. She has some really great ideas. I love it. So until next time, hope you're having a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon on the Valuations Podcast. Have a good one. Bye.